Howzit Bru? How you guys going? Got a fantastic game this weekend, this Friday actually. A little Friday evening test match. Number one team in the world, Ireland versus ranked number three, the New Zealand All Blacks at Aviva Stadium. So, got a couple of things to run through, team announcements and my prediction. So if you've never come to this channel, my name's Kenneth. Welcome to Rugby Bru. I'd love you to subscribe, jump in, throw your comments, your predictions, whatever you think below. That would be incredibly appreciated. So, New Zealand and Ireland is going to be a spicy one, given what's been happening, the sort of rivalry that they've built up over the last couple of years, and then the words between Rico Ioane and Johnny Sexton in his book, and all that stuff was revisited recently. And I think it's going to add a little bit of spice. So I wouldn't be surprised to hear a little bit of booing, a little bit of chit chat from the crowd. Will be a very loud chit chat, I'm sure, because Johnny was their boy, and I'm sure the Irish players will be fired up to put New Zealand in their place because of the quarterfinal, and maybe a little thing because of Johnny and maybe what was said or what wasn't said. I don't know. So I think it's going to be a fantastic test match. And as I said, these top five teams in the world, Ireland, New Zealand, France, England, South Africa, and even Argentina, any one of those teams can beat another on the day. So I don't think it's just like one team coming in and dominating. And Ireland has been that team, I think, that's really stayed at the top the last few years and been the team to beat, both at an international level and sort of whatever you want to call it, club, provincial, whatever, right? So they're setting the bar, and for a number of years. So New Zealand and Ireland first played their first test match in 1905, and I believe it was 37 times that they've played each other. So one draw in that time, and it was 2016. So 111 years after they started, that Ireland got that first win, and they were very close the season before that, and winning in it Aviva. So before we jump into, well, actually, let's just carry on with the scores here. So since then, 2016, they've played each other 9 times. Ireland have won 5 of those games, so they have a win rate of 56% since that win at Soldier Field in 2016. New Zealand obviously has a win rate of 44% against Ireland. So at home, Ireland have only played New Zealand 3 times since then at Aviva Stadium. They've played them twice in neutral venue in the World Cup, and then of course Soldier Field. And then the 3 Test series in New Zealand. So if you look at the home percentages of the win rate for Ireland, is out of those 3 games at Aviva, they've won 2 of them and they've lost 1, right? And so that's a 66% win ratio. At a neutral venue, they have a 33% win ratio and 66% loss rate. Away from home, they had a 3 Test series in New Zealand. Their win rate is 66%, loss rate 33%. So it's only really in these neutral venues, and specifically the World Cup and specifically World Cup quarterfinals, that they have a negative record against New Zealand since 2016. And so the average amount of points that they score per test out of the last 9 test matches going back to 2016, is Ireland scores on average 23 points with 2.55 tries per game. And New Zealand scores on average 30 points a game with 3.33 tries per game on average. But if you look at it just at the Aviva Stadium, is Ireland scores on average 18 points and New Zealand 16.66 points. So Ireland has the edge there. Ireland scores on average 1.3 tries. New Zealand scores on average 1.66 tries. Okay, so it's pretty close, pretty even Stevens between these 2 teams right now, and they've got a great rivalry going. And especially with the World Cup win by New Zealand, the things that were said by the players after the game, little bit of niggle there. That also goes back to that Test series in 2022, which was magnificent Test series, and Ireland did phenomenally well. And they, like I said, they definitely the standard bearers. So, is also Ireland has a 23 match unbeaten stretch at home at Aviva Stadium. The last loss was in February 2021, right, during the Six Nations. So that's a long time, right? 3.5 years, and actually pretty more closer to 4 years. Um, and so that's a long time unbeaten at home. Yeah. This year they've had two losses, the Test series in South Africa, but they lost the game against England in the Six Nations by 1 point, so very close there. But then they lost that first test in South Africa, Loftus Versfeld 27-20, and then they got the 1 point win in Durban, right? And they closed that out. So if we look at New Zealand, if we look at Ireland right now, there's very little between the two teams. And so in terms of this year, is they have two common opponents really that are in that sort of top five league, right? Is England and South Africa. So Ireland went to South Africa to play two test series and on the Highveld and in Durban, and they won one and lost one. So they lost the first one, the second one, magnificent drop goals at the end to win it. So they stole that from South Africa, right? Or let's not say stole it, they won it at the end, right? So that takes a lot of maturity, a lot of skill, a lot of composure, being able to handle pressure. And it's difficult to win in South Africa. New Zealand went to South Africa, also played two games, and they could have won both. They could have won one, but they lost both. So that was a fantastic series. And so the same thing, I think, for the Test series in South Africa, even though we won by 7 points in that first Test series, is they wouldn't go away. It was actually touch and go. That Test series, Ireland could have won both those Test matches. South Africa could have won both those Test matches, and the same thing. New Zealand could have won both those Test matches, and the Boks were fortunate enough to win both of those. And then they've both played England. So New Zealand played England twice at home, beat them twice. They played them at Twickenham. We know the story there. Great comeback last weekend, and so Ireland have played them and lost this year. So New Zealand has a better record against England this year, but Ireland has a better record against us than New Zealand this year. So again, more intrigue. So if we look at the teams here before we make the predictions, is this Irish team and the All Blacks team, the Irish team we know is a quality team. Couple of guys that have dropped out from injury and coming back and what have you, but still very, very strong team, right? And Ireland has that depth. They've got great systems, but it's going to be interesting. Munster struggled a little bit this year in the URC. Ulster's not doing too great, but Leinster is going to make up the majority of their team. Pretty much these guys are playing together and they're really clicking. So it's just that natural progression. It's like, and this is what I was saying, the Springboks now, a lot of them are playing with the Sharks. Okay, this is really their first season altogether, but over time, hopefully they have those same systems. But I don't know if Plumtree plays it. Well, he doesn't. He doesn't play the same way as Rusty, so it's going to be a little bit different. So let's just go. Let's go through the Irish team first, right? We've got the front row there of Porter, Kelleher, and Beelum. Tad Furlong is out injured, and then but that's still a quality front row, one of the best in the world. And Porter, that guy can go forever, right? The whole damn game. So, but they lost a lot of experience there with Tad Furlong, but I just think with their systems, they're in that place where they lose a player, and it just that quality, that intensity doesn't drop off, right? And then their locks, we got Joe McCarthy, and he's a young superstar. Got James Ryan, been there for a long time, and it's their loose forwards that are really quality, that gave us a hard time, that probably won that second test for them in South Africa, right? They were phenomenal. And so you got Tad Byrne, Josh van der Fleer, and Kalen Doris, who's the captain. And so no place for Omani in the starting 15. And then you got the return of Jamison Gibson Park, probably the best scrum half in world rugby. People speak about Antoine Dupont and everything that he can do. This Jamison Gibson Park is a absolute master. The way he controls the game and his decision making, his defending, everything. To me, he is the best scrum half in the world. And then you got Jack Crowley, no slouch at all, and filled those boots of Johnny Sexton, pretty 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 easily, like in his stride, right? Just straight in. And then again, their back line is probably one of the best in world rugby. James Lowe, probably one of the top 5 wingers in world rugby. Bundi Aki and Gary Ringrose, probably one of the best, if not the best centre pairing, along with Damien Dealende and Jesse Creel, just the standard. And Gary Ringrose is one of those guys who doesn't look like much, right? But he's an absolute animal, absolute beast. And then Mac Hansen, he seems to be able to score from wherever. Hugo Keenan, I really like that guy. I mean, he doesn't like this big physical guy in terms of the way he looks and carries himself, but what a player. And then their bench, they got Herring, Keeley. How many test matches that guy's got, I don't know. So lots of experience coming off the bench. And then they got O'Toole, Henderson, been around there for a long time. Omani, lots of experience, physicality, etc. It'll be interesting, given what he was saying to Sam Cane in that test series, etc. Again, lots of experience with Conor Murray, and then the star of the show from South Africa, Frawley, and then Osborne too, which is a really exciting prospect. So that's a 5-3 split. And then the All Blacks, who we got to know really well, is still no room for Ethan de Groot after him is breaking the team protocols. So he got left out, and then the guys did so well. The starting guys did so well that he didn't. There's no space for him in this this week's 23. So tough lesson for him, because I think he's probably one of the better props in world rugby. Right. So, but anyway, they got Tamati Williams, Amua, who I thought had a mixed year. I wasn't so sure of him being there in a team against England, especially when he had to come on so early after Cody Taylor. I think Cody Taylor's a big loss for the All Blacks, but he had a phenomenal game against England and really came to the fore. So let's see if he can keep that up. And then they got Tyrell Lomax there too. And so between Tamati Williams and Lomax, they've got 2 world-class props there. And then the second row, they didn't stand out last week, but neither did the English, right? Because they had their heads down working on that physical battle, right? So I think a lot of people say, oh, these guys were invisible. Yeah, they're invisible because they're bloody working so damn hard, right? For the backs in that to operate. So Scott Barrett, Vai, very good. Scott Barrett, of course, I mean, he's the captain, very good, probably one of the better locks in world rugby. And Vai is on his way up for sure. And then again, the loose forwards here is you got Ardie Savea, you got Wallace Satiti, the new superstar on the rise, had a phenomenal rugby championship, turned some heads in South Africa and carried that on last week, man of the match performance. And then you got the veteran Sam Cane, right? So I think but all three, I think, of the Irish will are just better than those three, right? Because I think just in terms of quality, Satiti's still new, but Sam Cane, I think, is not where those Irish loose forwards are. So I'll give that the advantage to the Irish there. And then I think, like in the locking department, I would almost give that to the Irish too. And then the front row, it's going to be really interesting, to be honest. But the loose forwards, I'm going to give that to Ireland. In the halfback pairing, you've got Cortez Rotima. I think that's the way I meant to say it. Somebody tried to teach me how to say it. I used to say Ratima. Well, apparently it's Rotima. I think so. Who's the young wonder kid coming up? One of the 2 wonder kids in the number 9 position for the All Blacks, and partnered with Mackenzie after old Bowden Barracks got a bit of a head knock. Bowden had a fantastic game last week, but Mackenzie, when he came on, made an impact. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can control the game, because Jack Crowley can certainly control that game. And so, but I think in terms of, it's going to be really interesting because 2 different style of players, right? So 2 different style structures in terms of how they play too. And so I think, well, no, Jameson Gibson Park, I think, has the edge over Rottimer there. It's the old guy versus the young buck. We know where Gibson Park comes from. Mackenzie, I think, is a little bit more dynamic, whereas Crowley, I believe, is probably a more of that structured number 10, can boss a game, can control the game from that fly half. And then, I mean, the you got Caleb Clark, who's going to be going up against Mac Hansen. You got Mark Tillier on the wing going up against James Lowe, which is going to be phenomenal battle. And then in the center pairing, where I think there's going to be a lot of big collisions, maybe a little bit of zing there, is going to be Geordie Barrett and Rico Ioane. And that's going to be really, really interesting because, like I said, Gary Ringrose is a very physical player. And then we got the star at the back there, Will Jordan for All Blacks. So that backline battle is going to be phenomenal, where I think the New Zealand rely on these individual players of brilliance. Is, to me, Ireland has more of that structured play. They have better shape, they have better systems in their attack, and they're very, very accurate with everything that they do, from breakdown to scrumming to line out to set pieces to, speed of the ball. And that's where Jamison Gibson Park is so good. And then the structure of not only their defense, but also their attack. Right. So there are lots of round the corner, lots of overlaps coming from different angles, sweeping around, just the same as Bowden Barrett last week for that Will Jordan try. And then on the bench, the All Blacks have got their young gun, George Bell, because of Cody Taylor's injury. And so Taylor's a big loss for New Zealand, in my opinion. So then the props, they got Tosi and Tuangafasi and Tuipulotu and Finau. Tuipulotu made a big difference when he came on. Very physical, ball carrying, number 5. And I think that's what New Zealand just lacked a little bit. Like Ardie Surveyor does that. Satiti obviously was running the ball a lot. Lots of defenders beaten, but those big, strong ball carriers, like almost like Retallick used to play the whole time, right? I think New Zealand's been really missing a player like that. So hopefully he can carry on from where he played against England. And then again, superstar scrum half Cam Roigard is back, and then Leonard Brown and Perafita to close out. So again, another 5-3 split there. So this is going to be a fascinating game. So like I said, this has been really tight over the last 8 years since that victory in Soldier Field. Fascinating. Just to remind you, in Ireland has scores an average 18 points. New Zealand 16.6. Let's call it 17 points. The All Blacks score 1.3 tries on average. 1.6 tries on average, where the Irish score 1.3 tries on average. So where does that leave us? Friday night, different kind of vibe. I don't know. I would say the victory by New Zealand last week, I actually predicted they would lose by 3 points. I still have more questions about that New Zealand side. There's a part of me that thinks these guys are going to rip on, watch them beat Ireland, watch them beat France, watch them go back undefeated. And then all of a sudden it's like, what? Where did these guys come from? Because they were meant to be, everything's falling apart, right? But I still don't think, if I'm just honest about it, the structure of the attack, it seems they're playing a different style of rugby to what All Blacks instinctively do, is just phase after phase, short ball popping runners. They're doing these one-off runners, but there's just no structure. And the New Zealand, the All Blacks made a lot of errors last week, but that also comes from that rush defense. We've done that to them in the past and been able to beat them under Rusty because of our blitz defense. And most teams come under pressure, and it happens. And when you get like that, what do? You stand around, right? Because you don't have anything to do. And so this attacking problem was under Fozzie too. And I actually wish that Robertson had tried different center partnerships with a bit of those young guns. Bring them in, bring in Proctor, just see what happens. Look what happens with Satiti. right? How he's performed. Look at guys like Vai. Look at Rotuma. You know, they're taking they're getting an opportunity and they're really taking it. So I would love to see more of that, right? So I still have so many questions around All Blacks, and it might just be the situation is where they finally click, they have more time under their coach, and it all just, hey, they get it, they understand it. Um, but I'm seeing a lot of aimless kicking. I'm seeing more kicking, whereas I'm like, wow, New Zealand would be attacking from here. Like you're getting the ball just before the halfway line, you're getting kicked the ball. There's no chase on you, and Geordie Barrett, you're just putting an up and under. That's too far, and you've got all the space in front of you and all the space to the right of you, and like that was classic. New Zealand would freaking score try from there, right? So I really think they're missing that structure, that attack right now. And then, yeah, I also think they're missing that big ball carrier. And Tuipulotu made a difference and allowed them to open up and get some structure because all of a sudden they could get across the gain line. And Satiti, guys like that, allowed them to go through the gain line. But other than those individual pieces of brilliance, they don't seem to have that collective, running from depth, sweeping attacks, where they just offload, 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 offload. Obviously, we saw the offloads from Satiti, but he was the sole. If you look at it, he was the guy that did the most offloads. So I don't really know where they are, to be honest. And then Ireland is a phenomenal team, right? And I don't want to keep beating up on the All Blacks. I mean, they're still freaking winning, right? Is that they're doing damn well, right? I mean, they've only had that hiccup against Ireland and Argentina and those two test matches in South Africa. So, but last week they closed out a game that in South Africa they would have lost. So you've got to give them props for that. So this is going to be fascinating, and that's why I think this game is so fascinating. And then for Ireland, it's almost like they're gonna be up for this because of the World Cup quarterfinal, and I think it's going to be a phenomenal game. But the same thing, like when you lose player like Johnny Sexton, it leaves a big void. So we'll have to see how it goes there at that fly half. But because I mean you've got a Munster fly half there at the moment, but these Leinster players playing together the whole time, I think is gonna make a huge difference. And so to me, the difference between the teams are Ireland are more settled, even though they're not maybe back to their dominant self in 2023, given they lost two test matches this year. Um, and but they still won the Six Nations, right? So is I'm going to say Ireland win this one 27-21. And I'm sorry, I like my All Black mates, I'll be supporting you guys to win because I said, like I will support you guys. But I think this one might be a game where you come across a settled Irish team that really want payback for the quarterfinals to prove to everybody, hey, like we shouldn't have been knocked out there. We're actually a better team, blah, blah, blah. We messed up. And so I think just with their settled players, and then now with Mackenzie coming in at fly half, I don't know. Missing Cody Taylor, is that going to work out? And it'll also depend on the weather, but also Friday night. So I actually said 27-21. And at one stage, I had the All Blacks winning by 1 point. But I changed it just before this video. I'd love to know your thoughts. I'm going on a little bit here. So anyway, that's it for me. Hope you enjoyed this. I want to know what your predictions are. Who do you think's going to win? Who are the players you're looking out for? And if you can, subscribe. That would be phenomenal. Leave your thoughts in the comments. I really appreciate you guys watching. Have a beautiful week and enjoy the rugby. I'll see you in the next video, which will be South Africa and Scotland. And take it easy. See you later. Cheers.